This is the first step along your path to a gateway beyond which is discovery, your own discovery of reality, of truth, of who and what you are.
You're listening to the Cosmic Garden Podcast. In this podcast, we'll cover topics about science, spirituality, and psychedelica. Hi, welcome back. This is our first episode of the Cosmic Garden Podcast. Today, we're joined by Patrick, my co-host, and I'm Caleb, your host. And we're going to be talking about today the CIA paper about the gateway experience. Patrick, tell me a little bit about the gateway experience.
Yeah, I mean, gateway experience, I guess you could say in a nutshell, is a type of meditation that utilizes binaural frequencies to put your mind into a particular state of mind that allows you to easily do things like out-of-body experiences or, deep meditation and or prayer, allows you to think about and all that kind of stuff of hard thoughts and all that kind of things that help you construct who you are as a person. And that's generally what its functionality could be considered.
Yeah, so you just said a lot of different things, pretty much summarized reality for a human right there. Well, so we're talking about a CIA article, and in this article, they released this in 1983, correct?
Yeah, you could probably say that it's around the time that the military really tried to, around the time that the world started looking like soldiers and stuff. I don't know if you could say that, but there's a lot of research going into the mental when it came to military forces around the world. And this is one of those articles that was written up because commander of the U.S. Army Operational Group wanted to know if there was any practical usage for hemisync frequencies in the gateway experience, and that's what this whole article is about. Is his assumption or assessment rather.
I dig it. So we've been talking, like you and me, we've been talking on and off about hemisync for probably the past couple weeks now, and you've been doing a lot of hemisync. But just to summarize real quick for our viewers, hemisync is kind of like a type of meditation, at least like the process of it, but more so hemisync is when you have the two hemispheres of your brain, the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, when they both synchronize, the frequencies of both when they summarize when they
you're totally good.
go into equilibrium. That's what hemisync is, and so it allows for these different brain states and different experiences that the mind can experience that is not waking life.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, exactly. And the way that it kind of works and the way that it's trying to do its things is generally by the three methodologies of being able to change how your consciousness is that we know of as a species, which is what would be commonly known as hypnosis as one of them, where in hypnosis, you're essentially trying to turn off one of your hemispheres rather than trying to sync them. And when you turn it off, that's how you can get things like the dude telling him, "Oh, your legs are numb," and then their legs go numb, and then telling him to stand up and walk while conscious, and they'll just fall over. That's the kind of situation, is like you can trick the brain and the body into making what would be considered biofeedback in false recordings and stuff like that. And then one of the other methodologies on biofeedback is biofeedback and the ability to consciously do something when it came to your body and your energy. So like the famous example is holding a thermometer in your hand and then focusing and trying to make the thermometer hotter, and you will actually make it hotter because it's I don't know, it's just how it works. It's biofeedback. Your brain is saying, "Yo, this place needs to be warmer," and so it goes warmer.
Yeah, I dig
and
it.
then
you mentioned three methodologies, right?
Yeah, I've only mentioned the two, hypnosis and biofeedback. There's still the transcendental meditation.
Right, right. Well, before we get too off track, I just do want to give a quick definition to our viewers about what the gateway experience is. So, right now we're kind of talking about these methodologies that is discussed in the CIA article and how woven together they can create gateway experience. But just a quick as a definition, the gateway experience is the method of synchronizing the two hemispheres, in other words, achieving hemisync of the brain into full frequency equilibrium to alter consciousness, moving consciousness outside of the physical sphere to ultimately escape the restrictions of time and space. And so this is what is discussed in this article. But yeah, so these methodologies, hypnosis, biofeedback, you mentioned those two, and then also you mentioned transcendental meditation. These three, it seems like the CIA definitely investigated these three, but dived deeper and like went more into what that means for consciousness, what that means for being human, but also what that means for living on Earth in this reality.
Yeah, it almost seems like in this objective of finding a way to, you know, find practicality in the gateway experience, the dude accidentally defined the universe in the same article.
When
So
you just trying to do some science and you accidentally just discover the theory of everything.
yeah, quite literally too. I mean, like the way that the whole thing breaks down top to bottom, and of course we'll go through this whole article in this podcast series, but it gets really crazy on how he ties everything together. Um, but yeah,
Well, so speaking of tying everything together, real quick, I think I cut you off earlier, but you were about to talk about transcendental meditation, and can you tell me a little bit about that? What this means in context of hemisync?
yeah, transcendental meditation is basically you can equate it to like monk level meditation. It's the type of meditation that is beyond the normal person's comprehension, where these people are meditating for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours at a time. These are the same people that can, like punch a brick wall 1,000 times. They can get kicked in the nuts if they wanted to, and they just won't feel it. This is the same kind of people because they're able to manipulate their energies while meditating in such a way that gives them almost superhuman abilities. And that's something that's commonly studied in all the various monk monasteries and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
that's
see,
what
we typically, at least I do, we think of superheroes like Captain America, Batman, but the real superheroes on this planet, they're living in the Himalayas.
exactly, dude. They're like, no, we don't need technology, all that kind of stuff. The technology's already here in our bodies, and we're here to find it out. I mean, it's always been one of my secret goals is to want to spend 5 years in one of those temples and just live that life because that would be insane. It would like life-changing experience.
Patrick, I feel like you would come out of that experience, like you'd come home, we'd see you, you'd have a shaved head, maybe, presumably, and I feel like you'd probably would be like, I understand. Like the first thing out of your mouth, like you walk in the door, I understand
Or
everything.
or I would look at you and be like, none of you understand anything.
Oh shit.
But no, it's really how that would be like because discipline is a discipline is the description of what you would use, but the level of discipline would be like master level discipline. It's just insane levels of fortitude, mental fortitude.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like we think of like discipline sometimes as like, oh, I gotta just like these like menial tasks that we just gotta do to get through the day to make sure everything's proper. But like what we're talking about here is like consciousness discipline, like conscious awareness of doing something that benefits the consciousness of the body. And that's pretty mind blowing to me, to be honest. Like the fact that people have just figured this out, that we're at a point in science where we're like, okay, we know how to synchronize the two hemispheres of the brain. We know how to achieve altered states of consciousness without any drugs and gain knowledge from that.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the one thing that everyone watching, listening, and interested in HemiSync should really keep in mind is that this is a tool. It isn't like, oh, here, meditate, it'll make you feel better. It's like, no, this is something that you can actually use to do extreme critical thinking about who you are, what you need as a person, and what you want out of the universe. All three of these things are achievable through this HemiSync process. And it's really cool how it works. Like I mean, I did a little bit of HemiSync before this, and I had a wonderful experience. So, it's definitely something I recommend to everyone, and to also keep in mind, it's a tool to be used.
Yeah, I feel that. I also did a hemisync before this, and came out pretty good. Like I don't think I got quite into the headspace of like really sinking in like for the first time that I did it, but that's just kind of how meditation is in general. Sometimes it's more intense, sometimes it's like you're literally discovering alternate levels of consciousness, and sometimes it's kind of like, oh, that was cool. But it comes back to what you were talking about discipline, like using this as a tool and having a discipline for yourself and using the tool correctly and in an efficient way.
Exactly, and always use it for your benefit or others' benefit. But I mean, that's the one thing when it comes to meditation, prayer, what this would be considered hemisync. It's yes, it's about other people, but like realistically, when you're in these headspaces, you should be thinking about yourself. You should be critically about who you are, because you can't change other people. There's just a fact about that. But if you can influence how people think by your actions, there you go. That's good enough. And so, if you're able to change your actions, change your behavior, things that you're not proud of or you don't like using using this gateway experience, then then it's definitely it's one in my books as far as a thing in this universe.
Yeah, it seems to me like it's kind of like the tool that gives more tools. Like it's kind of that idea
Exactly.
of like, here's the tool to the brain. The brain is a super complex thing. Like people are always talking about all the time, like, man, we're never going to fully know everything about the human brain. There's just kind of this background understanding in society that, like, man, we got some crazy shit between our ears, but we don't know how to use it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling the viewers right here, and Patrick, I'm sure you can agree with me here. Hemisync and eventually Gateway in general is the tool to figure out the brain without even having to go to college, without even having to become a neuroscientist and psychologist and all these things, or even spiritual yogi. Hemisync to the Gateway, that whole process and these methodologies that we talked about of hypnosis, transcendental meditation, biofeedback woven together, and to get into that hemisync state of mind is the way to find out anything you need to know about yourself and potentially, and I'll even say it based on what I've been reading about this article, about reality in general.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. And like in this article, one of the sentences that I love about hemisync the most is the description of how the way the hemisync works. You can think of your brain as light coming from the sun, right? Scattered chaos going everywhere, right? It's always running, always doing stuff, but it doesn't have an objective, right? It just exists to move in the direction that it was given to move. And the way that it was described was hemisync is like turning that light beam into a laser beam and making it so you can control where it's going and you can have, your way with your mind.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like that. It's like a lamp, right? Or like a general kind of chaotic light source focused into a laser. That's what this experience provides, is total mastery of your thought process and what you understand about yourself, as well as just the world and our place in it. But I kind of with what you're talking about, let's kind of go back a little bit and talk a little bit about the three methodologies. Let's just explain those a little bit, and how these are used and how they kind of, for those that maybe don't know, and how they relate to eventually hemisync. So those three methodologies, just to repeat, um, This is what hemisync is based off of. The goal of hemisync is to have left hemisphere, right hemisphere equilibrium, to the frequencies of each in sync to achieve these altered states of mind. But the process of getting there requires three things in a certain kind of way: hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback, just to repeat. Patrick, could you tell us a little bit more about like just a kind of an overview of like how hypnosis works in relation to the hemispheres?
Yeah, in direct relation to the hemisync process, hypnosis, the very stereotypical hypnosis action is having the stopwatch going back and forth like a pendulum in front of your eyes. Um, and that's not just a visual thing, that's science. Moving your eyes from the left side of them to the right side of them, back and forth, relaxes you and it calms you down. That's something that's been proven for um, quite some time, actually, like backdating into early Britain science, or I guess English science, I don't know. But uh, the way that hemisync uses it is using frequencies. It moves a frequency in your head from the left side to the right side to the top of your head and then back to the left side. And then it repeats that pattern. And in doing so, sets you into a state of mind where you are more, I guess you could say, malleable as a being.
And so the way I understand it is like the left hemisphere is logical, the left hemisphere is critical, the left hemisphere is here and now. Like, telling us what we need to know so we could survive the saber-toothed tiger that's coming through the woods or the angry boss that's coming around the corner, right?
Exactly. And with that, I mean, the way that you do it is because of that left right motion, you become more malleable, and because you're more malleable, um, you can almost induce states of mind yourself, and that's kind of what the goal is here. Because the way that hypnosis, someone induces that state of mind onto someone, and as a result, their brain just follows through. And so in this, um, the way that you can try and do this in the gateway experience is you can induce the want or the need for an answer to a pressing question, right? And so you have that mentality, have that mindset, and you almost hypnotize yourself into thinking that that is the important thing right now. And when you're in a state of meditation, it's really easy to only think about one thing. And so that's
Yeah,
what that's how the hypnosis is coming in to play with hemisync.
interesting. Yeah, I like that. So, like with the meditation, we're able to get to that point of single focus mindedness, like the pointedness, being able to just zone in on one thing. And I guess for a lot of meditations, it's usually the breath, focusing on that breath, this biorhythm that we have built into us, just focusing on that and nothing else, clearing the mind. But like you said, there's other things that we can focus on. Like there's other things, especially combined
Yeah,
with hypnosis and these alternate states of mind. Like we could think about questions, almost like prayer, the way someone might pray to God or pray to whatever. We can give a query to this biocomputer between our ears, and sometimes we get a response back.
exactly. And that's definitely what, at least what we know as transcendental meditation is going for, because the monks are doing a very spiritual meditation process. They are in prayer during this time, and they use the same kind of relaxation methods that are needed when it comes to meditation and that kind of a thing. Transcendental meditation is definitely something that I recommend for everyone, just in general, just because having the ability to clear your mind not only helps you in meditation situations, but it helps you with sleep, it helps you with focus, it helps you with all sorts of things to be able to flip a switch in the back of your head and turn everything off. And that's what just generic, transcendental, normal meditation is aiming to do.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely, you hear it's almost become canon in our like ever so slight woke society of like, man, you gotta meditate, bruh. You gotta
Yeah,
you
exactly.
gotta pull up
It's
the yoga
almost.
mat and
I mean, I remember at one of our old houses, it was just like spur of the moment. We just all took our shoes off, rolled up our pant legs, and did yoga in the living room, like 8 of us, including like two over 6 foot tall people, trying to somehow fit in this tiny ass living room doing yoga, just because like it was something that we all wanted to do at that time. And I mean, we were all fucking 20 somethings. Like, it seemed really silly, but we liked it and it was worth it and it felt great.
Yeah, so, general shout out to meditation and all the
Yep.
practicers out there. But, getting back to the gateway experience, the interesting thing, at least for me, in regards to hemisync, is that transcendental meditation generally takes a long time to really get to, like, it's obviously beneficial for anyone that hops down and does a meditation, and I can attest to that. I've had many good and positive meditations, but to really get that next level experience, I guess in this article, the CIA paper, they talk about using stereo headphones, kind of using binaural beats, different alternating frequencies from the left ear to the right ear, that difference of a 10 hertz difference in left ear and right ear frequency, to induce a state of unaltered state of transcendental meditation that would be equal to like a Buddhist monk that's been meditating for many years.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the part that's really cool, and this is the part that generally sells people on Hemisync right off the bat, is because generally if you're at this point where you're, interested in Hemisync and you've done at least some research or you're just dabbling in it, um, you've tried to meditate at the very least, and you've either been successful or you've been unsuccessful when it comes to having a real meditative experience. But I'm kind of flip floppy. I would meditate and it would work. I would meditate, it wouldn't work, that kind of a thing. But then when I listened to this, it was like that level of meditation, that clear mindedness that you get instantly. I got it. It was the first thing that I experienced within a minute of listening to the frequency. And then it just keeps going deeper beyond that. Like, you feel there's physical reactions, there's mental reactions, there's a lot of changes in how you're thinking, a lot of changes in mindset throughout this whole thing. And so it's really, really cool how this frequency can do something that seemingly has only been achievable by some of the greatest meditators of the world at this time.
And what you're talking about as far as like listening to certain thing, are you referencing these hemisync frequencies, like these binaural beats that have the stereo audio?
Yeah, exactly. That's the binaural beats, because I don't know if it was explained fully, but the way that they interact in your brain is you have, like you said, one that's 10 hertz difference than the other going into one the left side and then the right side, and then as they get combined, they become a different frequency, a frequency that generally would not be able to be produced by anything that we've created as technologically. But because our brain works in the way that our brain works, when we achieve hemi sync, we can then create frequencies that are deeper and more complex than anything we've ever been able to do. And this is where we've started making discoveries in actual mental changes and stuff like that with relation to frequencies, is those binaural beats.
Yeah, so last night or yesterday, I did a hemisync meditation with my brother. And so I had done it for the first time the day before that and had a really good experience. So I'm like, all right, Josh, here we go, man. We got to do this. It's crazy.
It's gonna
Maybe
be wicked.
it'll be wicked. We'll come out of this. We'll both be, for to say it bluntly, kind of high on life, And that's kind of how I sold him on it. I was like, hey, man, you get kind of high, but you're not high, but you have a really clear head, and it's also like you're kind of just like aware of your own thoughts and on a deeper level after going through this focus stage 3 hemisync. And so we did that, and I explained to him that I was like, yeah, so with the binaural beats, you have the difference in frequency, the one sound in the left ear, the different sound in the right ear, 10 hertz difference between the two, and your brain will actually create the third frequency. It'll create a reverb. So instead of kind of just hearing ooh, in the left ear, and then oh, in the right ear. In the way when your brain starts to flow into hemisync, when there's equilibrium across the hemispheres, your brain will actually produce a third frequency, which is the difference between the two, the one in the left ear and the one in the right ear. And it's kind of like a reverb. It's kind of like a like it's like a reverb kind of wave effect. And he was able to experience that, and it kind of blew his mind a little bit, because I told him, I was like, yeah, if you hear that reverb sound, because it's audible, almost like in your head, it's not real. It's actually not being played into your headphones. That is your brain filling in the gaps in that frequencies to
Exactly.
establish that equilibrium.
And this ability to create that crazy, extreme frequency has been, frequency healing has been the stereotypical name for it, but in all actuality, the frequency itself isn't doing any healing. It's only setting your mind up for success in that regard. The main part, the part where people say they're having frequency healing, the part where they're saying, "Oh, I'm healing my knee" or whatever, that's biofeedback. That's the third part of the hemisync experience. That's creating that level of not only internal consciousness euphoria, but full physical euphoria that can really sell someone on this whole experience itself.
I personally, I love the concept of biofeedback. I like, just honestly, like the whole, as like a general like idea of like mind over matter, but in a real way. I love it so much. But like when I was reading this article and going through what they talk about in reference to biofeedback, it got me thinking of it a little bit differently. Instead of just like willing neurons to activate in my hands due to focus and concentration or something like that, right? Kind of something that's not really like useful. The idea of using biofeedback to activate remembered previous states of mind. And that, I think, is critical for the gateway experience, because once you have it once, right, you get to that full state of hemisync, and then you go farther, and then you're able to have an experience with the universe, being able to reactivate that again, and maybe even quicker the next time. I'm very excited to learn more about biofeedback and hemisync.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's 100% something that happens. Because I mean, at my point when it comes, because I've definitely passively listened to hemisync, and not only just hemisync, but other binaural frequencies that help with other various states of mind. And so it's to the point that I don't hear the other thing. I only hear the reverb, no matter what the frequency is. I skip straight to that mindset. And generally, it takes me about 15 to 20 seconds for my brain to kind of flip the switch, I guess you could say, when it comes to having your brain in a stasis sort of mindset where the hemisync is happening, when your left and right are actually communicating, kind of a situation. But
That's
it's
cool,
definitely
man.
something.
Like for myself, I can only get that reverb like maybe a third of the time that I do these hemisync vids, and obviously I just started and stuff. But the fact that you like for the most part can drop into that state like that, but also just like feel that hemisync a good amount of the time throughout the whole meditation, that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not even that is like even afterwards, I still feel it too. And I know you said that you kind of get high, but you definitely do. Like when you stand up and walk around, like your brain is still in hemisync. You're still feeling, you still hear the reverb, you still feel that way, kind of a situation.
Dude, it was
But
incredible. Like for myself, I actually quit marijuana. For those that don't know that are listening, I know you know, Pat, but for those that are listening, I used to be I just smoke a lot of weed. To say it bluntly, smoke a lot of weed, and I'm 7 months sober now. And I'm not saying everyone has to be sober. Oh, thank you, man. But I'm not saying like everyone has to do that, but for my own self and like my own, what I realized I needed to do, I realized I needed to quit weed and just cut it out entirely. But there is honestly a want to just be like experience altered states of mind. Maybe not weed, but just in general that want for like cerebral discovery. There is honestly something within me that wants that. And when I achieved hemisync the other day, it was incredible that I was able to experience an altered state of mind with just my mind, like, and I guess my headphones. That
Mm-hmm.
was a cool thing. There was no substance involved, but yet I was able to experience a state of consciousness for myself that was clearer, that was more crystal clear, that was more euphoric, that was more precognitive of my own thoughts, and it was useful. Like I was walking around just like late, and then eventually I went to sleep because I did this like hella late at night. But I was just
Mm-hmm.
laying in bed, just observing my thoughts in a way that like hadn't felt like I had been able to do before.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to the final methodology, biofeedback, that's the most intense part of it, and that's the most influential part of hemisync is the out of body experience that you can achieve. And that's where, I mean, when it comes to hemisync, um, the biofeedback is probably one of the more important parts because of the fact that you need to be able to pull yourself out of the physical realm in a sense, especially if you have a very grounded mindset and it's hard to um, like visualize other states of consciousness. Um, then it becomes very difficult to like have an out of body experience just in general. But um, this definitely is like a skeleton key to anyone's mind when it comes to having that. Because I have definitely had more than one out of body visual experiences, even though I'm definitely not like a visual minded person. I am a very auditory kind of a human, you know what I mean?
Well, for our viewers out there, I hope that's just like a tease for Hemisync and the Gateway experience. We're going to be talking more about Hemisync and Gateway. We're going to do kind of a series on this podcast to launch this podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit more each episode about the experience, about our to continue discipline and progress with Hemisync. And we're going to report back to you guys, and we'll probably dive a bit more into the article in our next episode. But Patrick, is there anything else you'd like to add for this episode today?
I think all I have to say is that we have not even hit the tip of the iceberg. We're still approaching the iceberg. Just keep that in mind. As far as how deep this article goes, how much hemisync can influence your life, and what it actually means in accordance to existence. Yeah, we just started. We should just started our journey towards the iceberg that is hemisync. So, stay tuned. There will be more interesting conversations.
Alrighty, sounds good. Namaste, Patrick, and namaste to all our viewers out there.
Namaste.